Putin has deployed an army of 50,000 North Korean and Russian soldiers to take back Kursk. This army allegedly includes more than 10,000 North Korean cannon fodder. Western intelligence estimates that Kim Jong-un will gradually provide Putin with 100,000 North Korean cannon fodder. This claim is indeed a crazy number. Putin and Kim Jong may think that they will be 100% successful with this move. But for both Putin and Kim Jong, there are several very serious and unforeseen problems. One is that the US, UK, and France have lifted restrictions on long-range missiles in Ukraine in response to Putin sending thousands of North Korean troops to the Ukrainian front. The other serious problem is that North Korean soldiers are already aware of the hell they are in, and there is no guarantee that they will not flee from the Russian camps. Already in mid-October, a group of 18 North Korean soldiers who were really aware of their situation deserted from the Russian camps. So will thousands of North Korean soldiers fulfill their duty as cannon fodder, or will they flee the front at the first opportunity? North Korea may be the worst place in the world to serve as a soldier. North Korea is a country completely isolated from the rest of the world, with very difficult living conditions and completely biased propaganda that is hard to believe. The lives of the people and soldiers there are very different and brutal compared to the rest of the world. The only way to get information directly from there is through defectors or people who have escaped from North Korea. Especially South Korea is trying to help their compatriots there. It will be the North Korean soldiers who know the North Korean soldiers and predict how they will behave on the Ukrainian front. The arrival of North Korean soldiers on the Russian front line may be the biggest opportunity for them in their lives, because they have hardly known the outside world, and instead of choosing to be cannon fodder against Ukraine, the options of desertion and surrender could offer them absolute salvation. Ukrainian intelligence has integrated the North Korean language into the I Want to Live project and developed special propaganda for them. In addition, North Korean defector ex-soldiers living in South Korea volunteered to convince their North Korean comrades to surrender or defect. It is claimed that North Korean soldiers must surrender or escape, otherwise they will all be wiped out, whether 10,000 or hundreds of thousands of them. The most remarkable claim in this regard came from a North Korean defector. The North Korean defector said that all North Korean battalions will leave the front line when they attack Ukraine. Hyun Sung Lee, who served in the North Korean army in the 2000s, believes that the soldiers sent to help Putin's illegal invasion were considering desertion all along. Lee said in a statement that soldiers in North Korea would have been forced to leave, and that they would be young and not very committed to fighting. At first, there will be individual defectors, but over time, I think there will be a lot of group defections, including officers, he said. Lee said this was because the Russians would probably treat them as expendable and even worse than their own soldiers. Russian soldiers don't respect them as fellow fighters, he said. They will treat them like human shields. Lee said the North Koreans will eventually understand the hierarchy and how they are seen as expendable by the Russians, and will want to flee. Nearly 40 North Korean soldiers have so far been killed in the first clash between North Korean troops and Ukrainian soldiers in Kursk. A wounded soldier, heavily bandaged and lying in a makeshift hospital, lashed out at Russian leaders. He claims he was told they would protect the infrastructure, but the North Koreans were betrayed and sent to attack the Kursk region. The soldier added the following: "The Russians provided us with nothing. They dragged us into the attack without prior notice, without ammunition, without normal weapons." He said North Korea does not have the equipment to constantly prepare its troops for combat, as ammunition and bombs would need to be replenished. Instead, they were trained for show, so they could appear in parades or propaganda videos. Lee said these soldiers come from the North Korean working class and would be ambivalent about fighting for the regime. They are just looking for food and then trying to advance in their careers, he said. I am sure that these young soldiers today have no real loyalty to the regime. They received orders from the Supreme Commander, and then they had no choice but to move to Russia. I think they will die without taking any hits, he added. Putin and Kim Jong-un expected more from them. They will not get the expected results. On October 15th, shortly after news of the desertion of 18 North Korean soldiers, a Chinese mercenary fighting in the Russian army claimed that 8 North Korean officers were purged on the first day of their deployment in Ukraine. Using the name Dian Yujan on social media, the mercenary claimed that 8 officers were purged in just one day after joining the war, despite the prejudice that Pyongyang soldiers are ruthless. But North Korean soldiers may think twice about deserting because of the possibility of their families being imprisoned. Pyongyang has a policy of linking the guilty. If Northern soldiers are seen deserting by their colleagues, their families can be jailed. They will not be socially respected and will receive criticism from society and organizations, Lee said. Senior families are likely to face harsher penalties if authorities learn of their relatives' defection. But Lee, whose family fled Pyongyang in 2014, said some families may not even know their brother, son, or father is fighting in Russia because North Korea keeps all military movements secret. The soldiers will be monitored by a political official from the Workers' Party who will provide ideological training for 2 hours a day. Lee described his experience of the ideological training as follows. We are mainly trained on the history of the Kim family and military policy. Our main focus is that we must sacrifice ourselves for the Kim family, the party, and the army. For troops in Russia, this would mean teaching them to avoid Western psychological warfare techniques and prevent desertion. So the soldiers will be told, don't take any materials from the Ukrainian government or in South Korean language, and the claims in the propaganda they hear are all fake, and if someone deserts, it's not true, or if you are arrested, you will be tortured. However, Lee believes that soldiers will be vulnerable to the psychological operations used by the Ukrainian government to coerce soldiers to desert. He adds, if the Ukrainian government uses a psychological strategy against North Korean soldiers, the probability of desertion is really high because they have no real motivation. And clearly, their motivation is not to defend your country and then your parents and yourself. So they are only motivated by Kim Jong-un, the commander-in-chief of North Korea. In North Korea, men serve in the army for 10 years and women for 7 years. The special unit working as Kim Jong-un's personal bodyguards serve 13 years. Military service is compulsory in the DPRK, and most people enlist after high school. The biggest hardship soldiers have to endure is constant hunger. Soldiers in special units are well looked after, but those stationed outside the capital Pyongyang are given only 2 or 3 potatoes per meal, or are fed only raw corn kernels or corn rice. With inadequate rations, soldiers not only train, but also perform physical tasks, such as helping farmers in the rice fields. Many of them become very weak and hungry and are desperate to escape. But how effective are the North Korean troops in reality, and what problems await them on the Ukrainian front? They have never worked together with the Russian army before. The two countries have no experience of working together as a military force, and it is unclear how effective it would be for North Korean soldiers with no combat experience to join a Russian battalion. The main challenges will be religion, education, culture, and geography. On the northern and northeastern front lines, where Ukrainian forces are active, Kim Jong's troops will be confronted with minefields, forested areas with countless drones, and the barrels of Ukrainian artillery. Given all this, North Korean leader Kim Jong may have made an incredible mistake in placing his troops under the command of Russian President Vladimir Putin. Ukrainian forces could easily hunt North Korean troops in this ring of flames if they break through Kursk. The battlefield environment in Ukraine is very different from that in North Korea. The vast plains make covert operations difficult. In addition, due to the peculiarities of modern warfare, infantry and engineers are mainly threatened by drones on the front line, and the use of a large number of drones is an important feature of the battlefield. The Ukrainian army will have little chance against the threat of drone bombing, reconnaissance, and drone penetration. So the Russian plan to send North Korean troops and engineering teams to Ukraine is likely to be suicidal in the long run. On the other hand, many soldiers who defected from North Korea are willing to convince their compatriots in Ukraine to defect and surrender. They are the ones who know where the real salvation lies. Around 200 North Korean defectors living in South Korea, mostly with military backgrounds, have requested to be deployed to Ukraine in order to wage psychological warfare against Pyongyang troops reportedly deployed to Russia. The group of ex-soldiers with up to 10 years of military experience are ready to use their insider knowledge of North Korean military culture to disrupt and demoralize Kim Jong-un's troops. We are veterans who understand North Korea's military mentality better than anyone else, said An Chan-il, a defector and president of the World Institute for North Korean Studies. He said the group is ready to persuade defectors to surrender by acting as psychological operations operators, such as broadcasting loudspeaker broadcasts, preparing and distributing leaflets, and acting as interpreters. Capitalizing on their deep understanding of North Korea's military culture, the defectors believe they can exploit weaknesses and potentially encourage North Korean soldiers to turn their guns. According to the report, the proposal reflects the anger shared by more than 30,000 northern defectors currently living in South Korea. According to estimates by Seoul's Unification Ministry, about 34,000 people have defected from the north to the south so far. Among those who have reached South Korea are elite defectors such as diplomats, international students, and overseas workers. They are automatically granted citizenship in South Korea and receive some resettlement money. South Korea's more moderate approach is causing North Korean citizens to flee their home country. In recent months, South Korea celebrated its first North Korean Defectors Day. At the time, Mr. Yoon Suk-yeol promised better financial support for defectors and tax incentives for companies that hire them. It is likely that such support from South Korea will cause North Korean citizens to become more vocal about their dissatisfaction with Kim Jong's regime. Therefore, Kim Jong-un is likely to have a smaller group of supporters in North Korea in the future. On the other hand, it is known that the North Korean army soldiers are also dissatisfied with the situation. North Korea, a potential threat to the global military, is currently experiencing serious unrest due to the harsh policies implemented by the totalitarian Kim Jong-un regime. The regime's repressive approach to governance is reinforced by the intolerant and strict disciplinary measures imposed on soldiers by senior military commanders. But these soldiers are not only dissatisfied with the current situation, they are desperate. As we have just mentioned, North Korea is perhaps the best place in the world to live and do military service. It is only a matter of time before thousands of North Korean soldiers face the Ukrainian forces and perish. It will not be a surprise if the North Korean soldiers who saved their lives escape from the front lines again. One risk that the North Korean regime faces is the possibility of its soldiers leaving the battlefield and defecting to Ukraine or South Korea. So what do Russia and North Korea have to gain? Russian President Vladimir Putin will reap immediate military benefits from North Korean troops. Since August 2023, Russia has reportedly received artillery shells, anti-tank rockets, and short-range ballistic missiles to replenish badly depleted Russian ammunition and weapons. A photo has surfaced showing examples of a North Korean-made self-propelled artillery system in transit in Russia. This is the clearest suggestion yet that Pyongyang has provided Moscow with such heavy, long-range artillery for its war in Ukraine. This would hardly be surprising at this point, given that North Korea has already supplied Russia with large quantities of weapons, including millions of artillery shells, and has committed to the deployment of thousands of troops for the conflict. 50 M1989 Koksun self-propelled artillery units are reported to have arrived in Moscow. There is also ample precedent for Russia wanting to acquire heavy weapons from North Korea, especially long-range ones, which are particularly valuable. According to data from the Oryx open source monitoring group, at least 851 Russian self-propelled artillery pieces have been destroyed, damaged, abandoned, or captured. The real number is probably much higher because Oryx only tabulates losses that have been visually verified using open source materials. Pyongyang's support for Moscow's war in Ukraine has already enabled the supply of a wide range of weapons, including millions of artillery shells and various ammunition, which are badly needed. A recent assessment by South Korea's National Intelligence Service, NIS, based on intelligence provided by Ukraine's Defense Intelligence Directorate, GGUR, listed North Korean weapons collected from the battlefield, including alleged 122mm and 252mm shells, Bullseye-4 anti-tank missiles, short-range ballistic missiles such as KN-23, and RPG anti-tank rockets. Given the size of the containers loaded on cargo ships sailing between North Korea and Russia, it appears that a total of more than 8,122mm and 152mm shells have been supplied to Russia to date, the NIS said. Some claims that Russia may have also received North Korean Type 73 machine guns, which could have been used by the thousands of troops Pyongyang has deployed to Ukraine. There has also been speculation that North Korea could benefit from Russian weapons and expertise as a result of the deepening military relationship between the two countries. North Korea is likely to receive additional economic benefits and greater military technical assistance from Russia, possibly including satellite and rocket technology. Russia could also help North Korea upgrade its aging submarine fleet. Alongside suggestions that Pyongyang could buy new Russian fighter jets to overhaul its badly aging air force, there have also been concerns that Moscow could provide technologies to help accelerate its nuclear and long-range ballistic missile programs. Putin, who once opposed North Korea's nuclear program, may now find it useful to help improve North Korea's missile capabilities and nuclear weapons delivery systems. But this seems a very distant prospect for now. As a result, new poles are emerging in the world. In these poles, shaped by the conflicts in Ukraine and the Middle East, it is always possible to see Russia or China in the lead role. Whether it is North Korean soldiers, South Africans recruited by the Russian army, or minorities within the Federation. It seems that these recruits will always be on the suffering side. What better option for them than to desert or surrender? So what do you think about this issue? We will be glad if you specify in the comments. Thank you for watching us. Do not forget to subscribe to our channel, turn on notifications, and like to support us.